male is king, the male is supreme. I said it over and over again. I still feel that way. Girls play a nice game of tennis for girls. But when they get out there on a court with the man, even a tired old man at 55, they're going to be in big trouble.
Amidst the civil rights movement in the 1960s began a second wave of feminism in America, known as the women's movement. The movement was focused on equaling the rights between men and women and was the beginning of feminism in America.
Well, the main demand, of course, is equal rights. Equal rights to have a job, to have respect, to not be viewed as a piece of meat. Equal rights to set forth our own humanity. Equal rights to get into graduate programs, to get into schools, to training programs. We're the bottom third of the employment in terms of pay. We represent, nonetheless, 34% of the workforce, yet we're the first to be laid off and the last to be hired.
What sparked the movement, however, was a 1963 novel, The Feminine Mystique, published by Betty Friedan, a leading American activist for women. Betty Friedan was an American feminist writer and activist. She was a leading figure in the women's movement in the United States, starting with her book. After being a housewife for 10 years, Betty realized how discontent she was with the role that women were supposed to play in society, and published The Feminine Mystique in response. The Feminine Mystique was accredited with sparking the feminist movement, as it was a controversial bestseller as soon as it was published, and held beliefs such as women could have a job and a family at the same time. Betty was born in Illinois on February 4th, 1921. She graduated from Smith College in 1942 with a degree in psychology. She then proceeded to get married in 1947 and lived for 10 years as a housewife to her children. During these 10 years, she was very dissatisfied with her role, and it prompted her to write The Feminine Mystique in 1963. After the success of her novel, and as the women's movement ramped up, she co-founded NOW, the National Organization of Women. The NOW, founded in 1966, was a social welfare organization. It can now consist of 550 chapters in all 50 United States. It's the largest feminist organization in the U.S. with around 500,000 members. Later in 1970, after she stepped down from now presidency, she organized the Women's Strike for Equality on the 50th anniversary of women's suffrage. The Women's Strike for Equality was a strike which took place on August 26, 1970. It celebrated the 50th anniversary of the 19th Amendment and was sponsored by NOW and led by Betty Friedan. Alongside that, she also supported the ERA, and as the movement died down, she stayed politically active with more books published in the 90s. Betty Friedan also supported Roe v. Wade and women's right to choose an abortion. Betty Friedan passed away on her 85th birthday in 2006. Although Betty is seen as a leading activist in the 1960s, she did not support lesbians in the women's movement as, quote, they were not what the movement was concerned about, quote. She was often known to insult lesbians in America by calling them the Lavender Menace. Alongside that, in her novel The Feminine Mystique, she neglected black and working class women, as they were, quote, too busy for a revolution. Lastly, she focused only on oppression of middle-class housewives, and this portrayed that was the only role women held in the 1960s. Betty Friedan should be voted into the Hall of Fame because she sparked a feminist movement that is still in motion today. Her novel, The Feminine Mystique, inspired many and started the women's movement. Although Betty and her beliefs are controversial, she left a lasting impact on American history, and for that reason, she should be put into the Hall of Fame.